Opponent, Jason Crawford, you're recognized. And on deck, Lance Kerwin.
Thank you.
You're recognized, sir.
First, this is on already, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Well, good morning. First, I want to say thank you to each of you. I know that you do a thankless job. Oftentimes, as doctors see sick people, you see people when they have problems and they want them all fixed. So from the bottom of my heart to you, I want to say thank you. I know that you spend time after hours and pour over these things. I do oppose this bill, but I want to give a little testimony about myself as a home education parent. We weren't really interested in PEP to begin with. We like the freedoms and we didn't really want any of the money or any of the oversight. But my wife and I do struggle with a single car and getting to different places, and we're very strapped on our income. We piece everything together, and we both looked at each other and thought, well, let's dare to trust and take a risk and see what kind of opportunities we can provide for our children with the PEP scholarship. And specifically speaking about the instructional materials and the equipment for instructional materials, language that's found here limits it back to the 4 core subjects, when what we really were looking for and trusting for were those things beyond the 4 core subjects, the things that lead our kids to paths in career and technical or the arts. Sometimes a great history lesson is introduced through art. And my daughter, one of my daughters, she loves painting, and they always draw on the sidewalk with sidewalk chalk. It's pretty cheap. But canvases are not cheap, and nor are paints to actually do real artwork like they see and want to replicate in some of these history books or some of the literature books that we read through. Good literature accompanying good art as it's studied through history is a really important of seeing those things come to life through the ages. So I do think that there's problems with the language for the instructional materials because it's just too limiting. I do understand that you have optics that you have to worry about. You've made a great program, and then you've heard a lot of complaints and maybe a lot of things like was brought up in the Choice and Innovation Subcommittee. Parents can, purchase writing lessons, but not buy the horse. And to avoid hyperbole, we were never allowed to buy horses to begin with because those aren't really permitted anyway. But the limitations this is putting on it is cutting out way more than that. And it's a bit too far.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Miranda, Adrian Miranda, you're recognized. And on deck is Bethany Martin.
Good morning. I just want to say thank you for giving me this moment because it's a total drive time to get here today of 6 hours. So thank you for letting me speak right now.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for giving my children the PEP scholarship. This has been a life-changing education for my children. We've been able to do things that we have never been able to do before as homeschoolers, truly. Having a degree in education and teaching in the public school system in Florida, I'm now a home educator, and 2 of my kids are on the PEP scholarship, and 1 I'm applying for in the spring. And I just hope you understand that homeschool is different. I'm what's called an eclectic homeschooler. I don't just get one big curriculum in a box and take it out and let my kids do it. I pull pieces from all sorts of places to tailor it to my kids. I don't teach my son like I teach my daughter. I use different techniques. I use different materials. So therefore, I feel that the instructional materials and equipment for electives is absolutely necessary to give our kids the best possible education. Like our family, I want to point out that we use elective classes from digital sources. So that means we're taking classes online on our computers. For example, I use outschool.com and Yellow Spot Sun. Yellow Spot Sun is an art activity where they give us the videos to do the instructions, and then we do those projects in home. We can do the lessons, but we also need the materials. What use is it if my child can go on that lesson and see the video, but not be able to paint the picture, not be able to shape the clay that we're supposed to use for the project? We need the materials. We need the equipment because we are doing it at our home. We're not going to a studio. We're not going to an arboretum. We're not going to an industrial kitchen to take these elective classes. As a homeschooler, we're choosing to do our elective classes at home, just as we're doing our core curriculum classes at home. So I hope you understand that elective classes can be done outside the home, but for a lot of us, it's done inside the home as well because it's from digital sources. I also want you to know that we also strive for cross-curricular connections with my students. My kids love not just putting science in a box and not just math in a box. We love to have them see the connections between science and math, between math and art, between art and history. And we can't do that unless we have the materials for those elective classes. And lastly, I hope you understand there are some homeschool families, like mine. We have one income. And we have chosen a financially difficult road. I am no longer working outside the home. I am a full-time educator inside our home. And we've chosen to give that education to our kids. And that means we are now able to participate in electives through this PEP scholarship. Before the scholarship, we were never able to do electives. I hope you understand. We didn't have the money to buy instruments. We didn't have the money to get these art materials and things that we do to do the elective classes. We couldn't do it before the PEP scholarship, and if this bill stays the same in the language that it has, we won't be able to do it next year. We are financially strapped to the point where we can take the classes, but we won't be able to provide the equipment to take those classes. We won't be able to have the piano or the keyboard or the flute or any of those instruments in order to take those lessons. PEP will pay for the lessons, but we as a family won't be able to afford those instruments because we only have one income. In closing, since this bill is to help clarify the spending of the PEP scholarship, I just want to help everyone understand that we as homeschoolers, we didn't ask for the horse. We don't want the horse. What we do want are watercolor paints. We want paintbrushes. We want music sheets and keyboards. We don't want anything elaborate or extravagant. We want the basic things to do those classes that my kids love to do. So I just want to leave you with that. And I want to thank you so much for your time in investing into this program for my kids, as well as so many other homeschool families that I am regularly involved with. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your dedication. And thank you for representing my family to give my children an equitable education along the lines of their private school and public school counterparts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Brenda Dickinson, you're recognized, ma'am.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. There are really good parts of this bill that I support, but we still haven't gotten some language in this bill that needs to go in the bill to fix some of the problems. So I had to mark opponent, but I'm mixed. The parts that I feel like we need to address, which are important, is there's a misunderstanding that parents can take their children to the public school and get some of the courses for electives that the students would like to take. But the way the bill is set up, the PEP student has to pay the public school out of their scholarship. There's no mechanism for that to happen. So we don't have a single school district, to my knowledge, that can accept the money for the PEP, therefore they're denied. We think there needs to be some language in this bill that requires the school districts to work through the DOE or work with the SFOs to figure out a contract that would allow the public schools to accept PEP funds so that parents could take their child and get some of the activities that they would like to have, maybe be in a band or in an orchestra or something like that. That has not been addressed, and we've been working with PEP students and districts since HB1 went into effect. The other thing that I feel like has to be addressed are the ancillary statutes that address home education but don't address PEP. Home education students and PEP are two separate things, and the statute that required that the PEP have the same flexibility and opportunity as home education students didn't address dual enrollment. It didn't address Bright Futures, which is a big deal. It did not address extracurricular activities. Now, we've been able to work out some deals with different organization or state entities to try to make that part work, but our parents didn't want to take the PEP scholarship because they weren't insured they were going to be able to get a Bright Future scholarship. So you need to address those statutes and add PEP students into those statutes so that the students would be able to get those privileges that are afforded in law to home education students. Another important thing that I feel like, and people have been here speaking about the instructional materials, I believe there's a much better way to address it than to limit it to core subjects for equipment. I believe that parents ought to have the flexibility to use their money for whatever customizes the child's education. However, we would recommend that there be a spending cap on single items of $1,500. Maybe you would go with $1,000. Our recommendation is $1,500. As opposed to limiting the subjects, limit the items that they can spend that money on. And then if there is a reason for them to be able to, the need demands that the child gets something more expensive, they would have to get approval from the SFOs to do that. Let me give you an example. There's now an Olympic sport for paddleboard, and some of the students with the UA scholarship have utilized this scholarship to buy a paddleboard. Now people are getting, you folks, legislators are getting criticized for some of the big items that they're spending the money on, but some of these are really, really important to these particular students. So rather than limiting the subjects, I would recommend you limiting the spending on big items. And I think it's important that you amend the digital devices section that's in there, because people can take online courses, but if they don't have an up-to-date computer, they can't access those courses. So digital devices, computers are included for the UA students, but not for the PEP student. One last thing I'd like to bring up today is that in the legislation, the purchasing guide is going to be decided by the University of Central Florida Center for Unique Abilities. We would recommend that there would be an advisory board of parents representing the disabilities that are covered in the UA, so that parents can give some advice on teaching those children and what their needs are in developing that purchase guide. So we have some really, I believe, important additions to make to this bill, and I don't believe that we've yet gotten an opportunity to include those as amendments. So thank you for hearing us, and we hope we can work together in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. You're recognized.
I'm Bill Maddox. I'm the director of the Marshall Center for Education Options at the James Madison Institute. And I have really three things to say. One is thank you for HB1 last year. Huge development. Whenever I travel around the country, I encounter people from other states who are envious, who are jealous, much like the lady from Tennessee, of what we've got here in Florida. And that's thanks to you guys. We really appreciate it. Thank you for addressing many of the problems that we have encountered with HB1. These are invariably going to arise, and so we are appreciative of the fact that this new bill, 1403, addresses concerns like the payment schedules and things of that nature. The last thing I want to say is this. I fear that many of us who are supportive of these programs are spending too much time listening to the critics of these programs who will never support these programs, and not enough time listening to some of the parents who have very legitimate concerns about how these programs are operating or why they are locked out. And the reason I say that is this. Yes, it's great that more than 100,000 families were added to the scholarship rolls this past year, and Florida is now serving more than all of the other states in the country combined with its school choice programs. But a step-up report from several months ago indicated that there were more than 90,000 families here in Florida that applied for and were awarded scholarships that chose not to use them. This suggests to us that there is a very serious supply-demand problem here, that our supply is not keeping up with demand. And that says to me that there are several things that we ought to do to try to fix that. You've heard these things already today. One, fix allow online private school programs to be included, not just FLVS, so that students who want those opportunities full-time or part-time can have them faith-based, non-faith-based. Allow online privates. Secondly, fix this hybrid school problem that we've heard described about, because this is an emerging area of very innovative, creative activity where a lot of schools are going to 3-day, 2-day kinds of programs that the teachers direct, as you've heard, but 2 or more days are sometimes taken at home with parents. There are other emerging programs that fall under the category of learning centers that are more suited for PEP programs. We need to understand this. We need to address and fix this hybrid school problem so that more and more families that are interested in this can take advantage of it. And then lastly, I would say, eliminate the sweeping prohibitions on PEP expenditures. We've heard these complaints from critics. Again, as a taxpayer, I'm not troubled by the fact that families have used PEP funds for trampolines or paddle boards or other things. But if people really want to prohibit those things, then spell those out and just identify the specific things you don't want. Right now, what you've got in 1403 is a sweeping prohibition that includes all sorts of art and music and PE sorts of programs, and it means that families won't be able to spend money on very legitimate expenses. Easels, paints, modeling clay, musical instruments, kickballs, badminton nets, foreign language programs. What this does is it sends a signal to parents that if they get involved in this area, they may subject themselves to all sorts of nitpicking. And if I can bring you one report back from the last weekend where I spent some time with some innovative educators down in Broward County that are doing some amazing things in the micro school and hybrid school world, one of the things that they said to me is, if we sense that this is going to be a world that's full of nitpicking, we're not sure we want to get involved. We've got 90,000 families that are looking for something. We need to serve them. I think we need to do just as I said, free up the online, deal with the hybrid school, and perhaps most of all, make sure that this nitpicking on the PEP program ceases and that we allow parents to have the latitude to use monies for legitimate expenses in all these ways that we've described. Thank you again. You're doing great work. Keep it up, and let's fix these problems.
Thank you, sir. We also have another bill to present. Any debate? Chair Fine.
Thank you. I don't think I need to be held to the end. Look, I want to compliment Representative Tom Cow. What you did last year was an extraordinary achievement that many of us worked on for a very long time. But when you transform something as big as education, you're going to have to tweak it along the way. And that's exactly what you're doing here today. And I suspect next year, although you'll probably move on from the chairmanship that you have, either you or someone that you'll be directing will be doing it again. That's the way it is. But I noticed as I was sitting here, you do something that members should do more, I should do more, including, which is you sat there and you were listening to everyone who came up and you were taking notes as to what it is that they had to say, because you do care about the concerns that they have. I had one early on, which was I had people reach out to me and I had people say, well, you're going to get rid of the Hope Scholarship. And I said, well, yeah, we're going to get rid of the Hope Scholarship. You don't need it. The Hope Scholarship was for a certain category of people. Well, if everyone can get a school choice scholarship, why do you need this one? And they said, well, because the Hope Scholarship, you could get it any time in the year. I raised that issue to you and Chair Masulo, and boom, it got fixed. The point is that you are listening to the issues. But we have made massive, massive strides. And when you create something so big and so transformative, it's going to take a while. I think one of the things we probably didn't expect is the number of schools that have chosen to still not take the scholarship. I mean, it's amazing to me that there are schools out there that have said, no, we don't want it. There's no rational reason for that. So there's clearly things that we have to do, but I would say that the fact that there are 90,000 people who've gotten the scholarship and have chosen not to use it speaks to the power of the idea that you did last year. It shows that this is what people want, and we're going to get there. But you don't turn a train in 5 seconds, and so it takes a while to do it. You're doing a great job, and I'm really proud of you. And I know that you're going to continue to fight this year and beyond.
Ranking Member Williams, you're recognized. Debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Rep. Tomko, I want to say thank you for being the person that you are. Rep. Tomko and I had several conversations on last evening, to the point we were still on the phone texting and emailing each other as we had ones coming up to speak about the concerns that they have on this bill. My last conversation I had with her, she was in one elevator and I was in the opposite elevator on our way here. She walked out the elevator, I walked out the other, we met at the door. Still having a conversation on how we can make this better. But as your ranking member and as a member that has been here, when we did HB1 last year, I was very disappointed. I was disappointed because I felt that the bill was rushed. I was disappointed with the Hope Scholarship because I felt that money was being taken from our public school system and put into a program or an organization or a holding place for students that would not be able to accept all of that money. And at this point, we have public school systems that is owed millions of dollars because that money has not been used. And I'm very concerned about the accountability, being transparency, and the taxpayers' dollar. And if we can't show where we are actually, the number of students that's using these scholarships, the number of schools that's in the public school system, the number of schools that's in the private school system, we don't have accountability of the taxpayer money. And that's one of the things Rep. Tomko and I have been working back and forth to try to find out. When we speak on SFO and DOE actually being able to work as partners to actually get this data to us, to make sure that we are keeping track of the taxpayer money, we are keeping a track of our students. I remember Rep. Fine had a bill that he was concerned about students that was actually missing. If we don't have a correct count on how many students that we're serving, on where we actually put in the dollars and how many dollars is being used for each student, we are not doing our best for the students that we serve. And to the point of being transparent about the Title I schools, if we have a pile of money, millions of dollars sitting in our account, and we have our Title I schools struggling because they don't have the funds available for our students, we are not doing the proper account for the people that we serve. And the bill states that we're gonna currently hold 25%. Instead of holding the 25%, let's do 10%. Because we have students and we have schools that need additional funding, and we are holding this money in an account just because. It's not fair to the people that we're serving. And I want to say again, Rep. Tomko, I thank you for taking the time out and being willing to work with me on some of the problems that I have concerns about. I have one district that has sent me a text saying they're missing over $15 million from last year. And I shared it with her. So these are some of the concerns I have, but I want to continue to work on this. And the young lady that came up and said, we are the forgotten people. That's when she and I started texting each other. Is there a way that we can kind of fix this problem? So as we serve on these education committee, we understand, well, I understand that education is the foundation for our state, for our children. And I want to say, Chair Masula, I have worked with you on this education committee for the last 3 years. And I find it to be very educational for me and very helpful for the students that we can help. So thank you.
Rep. Woodson, you're recognized in debate.
Thank you, Chair. Rep. Tomko, thank you for taking the time to talk to me, to listen to my concerns, and also to the fact that you have shown the willingness to listen, to work with others, and meet each other halfway wherever you can. And I know sometimes it might not be possible, but you always try to find a way. And for that, I appreciate you. And you know one of my concerns is from line 135 to 144. You took the time to explain to me why it wasn't possible to add the public school to that area. But you did say you and I can sit down and talk and see what else can be done in order to ensure that we are also fair to our public school students. So I truly appreciate that. You heard the concern of so many parents this morning. And like Rep. Fine indicated, you took note, you listened, and that's what we can ask for. And I know you are going to do your best to see how we can collectively sit down and work together for the betterment of all students in the state of Florida. I really appreciate, your passion, because you have put in a lot of work into this bill. I appreciate the fact that you truly care, and I look forward to working with you as Rep. Williams. I already have an appointment with you for us to sit down and see what else we can craft to make sure everybody's concern is taken into consideration, even though we cannot please everyone, but we will try our best. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Rep. Valdez, you're recognized in debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I wanted to thank all the speakers for coming out today and sharing your concerns. As I was sitting right here in front of Representative Tomko, the eye contact was going on. We were having some slight conversations about some of these issues, so thank you for bringing it to light. I think that you will find that in the years that I've been here serving as your state representative, we have seen massive education bills come through that in 60 days is really tough to come up with really good, solid policies that we don't have to come back and retweak. So I am so confident that your voices have been heard. It may not be fixed this particular session, and just know that your voices have been heard. So I think that collectively we can really work together with Representative Tomko and all of us here, because we do care about all children, regardless of their abilities. And I truly believe that in everything that we do, we don't have an endless bucket of money. I wish we did, but we really don't. So when we think about these opportunities for all students, we have to think that, there's a limit on what the budget is. And, a thought came through. What happens when the homeschooled child is going to go and take driver's ed? Do you rent a car? Do you buy a car? Will the scholarship cover that? So think about these things that are long-term, and I don't mean to sound flippant, but these are realities, right? So we have to be equitable. We have to be able to afford children their opportunities to grow and prosper in an environment that is conducive to their learning. So this is a little complicated because of the fact that we don't have endless dollars. I wish we did. If that were the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work with Representative Tomko in reference to fixing some of these things or just enhancing it. So then maybe next session when we come back, we'll have that conversation and be able to define some terms in statute and really help the SFOs in this process. Because I think that one of the challenges is that both SFOs have different philosophies of what's covered and what's not. And I think that that's something that needs to be unified so that then there is no discrepancy on any family. So I want to thank you all again for coming out to speak to us today and share your concerns. Representative Tomko, great job. I know it's challenging, and you learned education, like, really, I think it was kind of sort of, here, do this. And you had to put your feet in the fire and get to learn FEFP, which is really complicated, and your dedication is definitely shown. So thank you, Chair Masulo, for your leadership as well. Ranking Member Williams, thank you for always bringing the real talk, and I appreciate what the future will bring in making this bill a lot better, possibly next session.
Further debate, members? Any further debate? All right. Well, I also want to thank all the members of the public that have come and testified, particularly the parents. I'm impressed that you take such an interest in your children's education. You certainly are a model for our state. Rep. Tomko, you deserve an A for all your hard work. You know, last year when we passed this bill, we knew it would be an iterative process, and it still will be. And it will continue to evolve in the next several years until we get it to be the best thing that Florida has ever done. We're already #1 in the country, but we're not going to rest on our laurels. There are some issues. We'll probably experience more issues in the future. But we have to realize that there's philosophy also coming into politics. And part of that philosophy we use as we shape our legislation. It's not to say that there aren't problems. And today we've heard several issues. But by and large, this bill has done remarkable things and it's changed lives of millions and millions of people. And even though there's only hundreds of thousands currently involved, those people will touch millions of lives. And we need to keep that in mind when we pass this bill and when we do other things for education. You're recognized to close.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Chair Masulo, and thank you, members of the committee. I know we have all spent a lot of time talking through this particular piece of legislation, and I appreciate all of your thoughts, all of your comments, all of your concerns. Members of the audience that are here today, I think it was said that I'm sure the emails go into an abyss of no one pays attention to them. That is not true. We all hear what you are, or hear, we see what you are writing to us. We hear the voicemails that you're leaving. We have the conversations. It might not necessarily take place in this moment, but it's taking place on the phone at all hours of the morning and the night and through the day. And, you know, what is a weekend during session? Because I was working on this all weekend with staff and with stakeholders and with many of you. And so I just want to say that because we have had a very collaborative process, and I, you know, pride myself on being a very collaborative member. I would say, you know, last year what we did in terms of Chair Tuck's bill with HB1 and what we did in the FEFP, members, I see in real time the amount of students, the amount of money we're spending on students, where that money is going, how fast it's going, if it's not going. You know, these are all issues that I am very aware of, and I have the privilege to be at the forefront of. So I don't take this lightly. I don't take the pieces of the puzzle, you know, lightly. I make sure that we are doing it to make sure that the longevity of this program is put into place to where, you know, my grandkids will be able to be a part and benefit from this. And I think that we have a responsibility, and I've said this in every committee, to be fiscal stewards with those dollars, to make sure that we are helping the education of the student. You know, a lot of things are added on and they're great. And a lot of, you know, things are needed for a child to grow up and be successful. But if we're going to have equity in all of the forms of education, we have to take a real look at what is actually going to help that child go from point A to point B and to succeed. I know that we have heard a lot of different conversations and a lot of different you know, ideas that have come up, and they might be ideas that we are able to work on. Unfortunately, this bill is very much tailored to fix and rectify some of the situations that we saw over the last year with the rollout. And I imagine some of these deeper policy conversations will continue to grow and continue to be a part of this committee and others. And so I look forward to that. And as Chair Fine said, yes, I did take a lot of notes. So I am listening, And I would ask for your favorable support. Thank you all so much.
Very good. Having closed on her bill, Misty, please call the vote.
Representative Spankson,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Esposito,
Yes.
Fine,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Gonzalez Pittman,
Yes.
Coster,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Mello, Rizzo,
Yes.
Trabulsi,
Yes.
Tremont,
Yes.
Tuck,
Yes.
Valdez,
Yes.
Waldron,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Woodson,
Yes.
Chair Masulo.
Yes.
19 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Misty. Members, by your unanimous vote, will show CS for HB 1403 reported favorably as amended. Congratulations, Chair Tomko.